Next project I'm going to show you, but we will need the lights out completely to make sure you fall asleep. We need complete lights out. This light also. It's called A Journal of Insomnia. It's a creation by Guillaume Brown, Thibaut Duvernay, Philippe Lambert, and Bruno Chouanière. It's a project about insomnia. It was released this year in April. It's a collaborative and interactive documentary. This is the brand, and this is the demo.
My first memory of insomnia is running down the stairs by my parents' house when I was 6 years old and telling them I couldn't sleep and them telling me to go back to bed. But it wasn't like the other kids. It was, I honestly couldn't sleep.
In developed countries, 30% of people are insomniacs like me. Since the fall of 2012, privately, under the cover of darkness, I have been meeting them and collecting their stories. Welcome to A Journal of Insomnia. Only by making an appointment and coming back tonight will you receive the full experience. It's your turn now to invest part of your night.
My name is Sarah. I'm 29 and I've always had insomnia. I don't sleep very well. I guess my mind is usually too active to sleep, or sometimes I'm just not comfortable.
Thank you for making an appointment with Sarah. An email with the details has been sent to you. Come in. Sarah is here. She's waiting for you.
I feel like there's not really normal nights for sleep. Like, you don't know if you're going to sleep through the night. You don't know if you're going to be up all night. You don't know if you'll fall asleep in the beginning, wake up in the middle, fall asleep towards the end. So it's pretty random sleep. There's a million things that like contribute to not sleeping, but you just get used to it. If you get some anxiety, you get something stuck in your head, then it will spin out. And if I start to spin out, then there's no sleep, there's no hope, and then I'm just like...
You just experienced Sarah's insomnia. Here are the insomnias of Tina, Francis and Fatia, as well as all the confessions of all the insomniacs who collaborated to A Journal of Insomnia.
So we released that project at Tribeca this year at the Storyscapes, which is the first edition of the transmedia part of the Tribeca Film Festival in New York. And we were invited to do an installation of the project. So this is a time lapse of the installation. We did like a weird black box in which you would go in and Insomnia would ask you a question and you would answer by keyboard or with the mouse to draw. And what you answer was projected on one side of the cube, and on the other side it was like live Insomnia. So people tweeting live that like, oh no, an insomniac, I cannot sleep, blah, blah, blah. And it was 5 projects, so we were in competition. We did not win. But it was a real honor to be part of that first edition in New York with projects from Google, projects from the MIT, and a Star Wars Uncut project. So, okay, we can bring the lights up and wake everybody at the same time. Put some rock and roll. So we will stay in the dark and sleep while you look at us. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you why we did this. So I just came in at the NFB, and my girlfriend
had a baby.
Had the baby, our first baby, and I was in charge of transporting the baby in the middle of the night for breastfeeding. I was in charge of the transport. So one night I was just lying down and looking at my ceiling. It was like whatever, 3, 4, I don't know. And mental health issues are one editorial priority at the NFB. And I was already thinking about a little bit about insomnia, which is a widely spreaded issue. Like 1% out of 3 cannot sleep in developed countries at any given night.
Raise your hands, insomniacs. Oh, I think there's more than that. Okay, okay.
So I was looking at the ceiling and I was just wondering, like, okay, so right now in my time zone, how many people are doing exactly the same thing as I'm doing? So that's millions of people at the same time. And people just stay in the bed and they look at the ceiling. I mean, like only 10% of insomniac will go for therapy at some point, and the ones who will do, or therapy will help, and the ones who will do will take 10 years to do so. So everybody are just staying in their bed and looking at the ceiling. And I was thinking, internet is the best medium to tell that story because, first of all, internet is insomnia because internet never sleeps, and also internet has that capacity to interconnect people together. So the insomniacs could be part of the process. So that was the first, in the brief to the creators, that was the first point, is that insomniacs has to be part of the creative process. That's the first thing, because they have webcam, we know the time, we know their time zone, they can do stuff with the keyboard, they're connected. So that was the first part of the brief. And the result was that the first thing we did is we put a platform online where there was 80 questions, but it was Insomnia asking you these questions in this art, in this design. So it was really like immersive, and that voice, that weird female voice that was asking you a question. And you would answer these questions by webcam, by words with the keyboard, or drawing with the mouse. And I was super skeptical about the mouse, and the overall team was skeptical about Insomniacs doing whatever. But from the moment we put that online with no marketing, with no communication whatsoever, people started to contribute and share. And the quality of the drawings were so touching and profound that it completely changed our point of view, our vision of the project. And it was interesting because for 6 months after that, in the production process, the creators, every morning, they would see new content coming in. So they themselves, like the sound designer, the graphic designer, the videographer, they were in the creation process, but their characters were throwing stuff at them every day. So they had that sense of responsibility towards the Insomniac, but also it changed the way they shaped the project. The most important lesson I learned as a producer, and I've been doing whatever media you can call it, like transmedia, for like 15 years about, and we tend to do like what we call participative or collaborative. We tend to do our project, put it online, and ask people to react in some way. So the public always comes after, like you do your stuff and then they participate. With this project, we switched the way around. It's like, no, people start participate from the beginning of production, and they're part of that, and they can change the way of the production. And that totally changed the paradigm about how we view the public participation for our next project. The other thing that I learned was that you have to be very focused about who you want to participate and what you want them to do. And I would use the analogy of a director in cinema and fiction or in theater that would direct actors. They need a script, they need to be specific, they need to know what they need to do, and inside of that they need liberty. And that's why I think we had quality content. We had like thousands of content that was created by the Insomniacs. And it was quality content, like a huge part of it, because we were very specific in what we asked them to do. The second point of the brief was real time. Because it's part of the night and we use internet, because we talk about the night, something that happens in the middle of the night, and we use internet to tell that story, I wanted the creators to use the real-time aspects of the internet. They used it in many ways. The first is that on daytime, you introduce to the characters, and on nighttime, you have the experience of the insomnia. That's the first thing. So you have a day experience and a night experience. But also, we found that people tweet a lot about their sleeplessness on Twitter. So the musician who created all the sound of the project used Twitter as a trigger for the melody of the project. So he created a little bit like Brian Eno created his Music for Airport project, is really that meeting between something that is prepared versus something that is random. So he created that possibilities of notes. And each time someone tweets is insomnia, it triggers a note. And the more notes come in, the melody is created. The third point of the briefing was to bring the subject from an individual individual perspective to a collective perspective. Like I said, it's someone that is lived profoundly in
Pain.
in like individual pain, like in absolute solitude. People stay in that state and they just keep their pain for themselves. But when you start to read about insomnia and you go back to the history of insomnia, really the social history of insomnia, you go back and you realize that the human species has always been insomniac. Like you go back in medieval times and people would just go back to sleep at 9 and wake up at 1 and then do stuff for an hour and then go back to sleep and finish their night. And it was accepted to be awakened at night. But from the moment that before the Industrial Revolution, when time became money in a social sense, then it became a problem to be awakened at the middle of the night because you need to be performant the next day. So it sheds like an interesting perspective on the issue, because each time we talk about this issue in the media, it's always about on a clinical aspect, on a therapeutical aspect, and also the only goal is to kill insomnia. Like the success is to sleep, but when you look at history, it's our relation to the night that changed. So that's very interesting. Was there something else that I wanted to say? Do you want to say something?
Tout le temps, all the time. We do work a lot about mental health issues, and it's a post-industrialization real problem. And of course, and people do not do physical work. And if you work in a factory all day, and if you work in a field all day physically, you will sleep. But we don't work physically, or less and less physically anymore. So of course, there's more insomnia. But I just wanted to come back on a few things that are important. We've shown you 3 that are very different. The processes are different. And I want to come back on how we say in French, it's very pretty, le mélange des genres, the mix of genres, and how we are in a period where not only is there contamination between medias, it's not from one to another. One media is changing the essence of the other. And I think this is, we have to integrate people that are in filmmaking, that are in audiovisual production or in media production, must integrate that. Also, that the genres are being also mixed. You will see that we integrate animation, we integrate graphic design in documentaries now. We mix also to illustrate what we want to illustrate. For example, we used to do reconstitution in documentaries when we could not film it. Now we use animation or some kind of graphic design that we feel is much more stronger than a strict, badly done reconstitution that everybody knows it's not true. Animators are very, very inspired by interactivity, the ones that work in true animation. We talked about the gamers coming, and we are inspired by gamers. You know, people would say, oh, gaming is commercial. No, gamers are artists. I will just give you an example of a game that was designed in New Zealand for teenagers, because gaming is for a lot of boys, teenagers, etc. Well, the game was designed, it's a serious game, it's a fun game, but it's really a serious game because of the choices the players made. They could detect if the young boys had suffered depression or not, or were on the verge of suffering depression. So there's a lot of use to that. Also, of course, and I think this is very important, is the notion of authorship. Who's the author? In classic cinema, there is le cinéaste, the filmmaker. It's always, of course, a sport team, you know, because there needs to be people at sound and that camera, but it's signed by one person. Well, we've realized that because we had this problem at the National Film Board. They would say, well, it's by who? Well, except for Vincent Morissette, blah, blah, because he did everything. He's a programmer, he's a this, he's a that, he does everything. For the rest, there's not really one person. So the notion of authorship has to be shared. The programmer is an artist. The designer is an artist. The content person is an artist. The sound person, like the sound is very, very important for Insomnia, as you notice. And it's the same guy that did the sound for Blah Blah also, Philippe Lambert. Well, he's a musician, he's a sound person. Now he wants to create his own work also, visual work. So we get people now that come to us for a proposal that comes from visual arts, that come from music. So the notion, it's photographers. Jérémy Battaglia, he's a photographer. So it has given life also to some artistic disciplines that were having a hard time, that they're coming back. So it's opening up artists. So we're breaking the walls of artistic disciplines also.
It's almost like if we're in a transition, I guess maybe like in 6, 7, 8 years, we're going to see more and more like one director handling the projects. And when you see at like moments of revolution or great transition in media, when we were talking to the guys who invented cinema, vérité, direct cinema, and they were talking about the credits, and they cannot even s'entendre.
They didn't get along.
They didn't get along about the credits. Because, no, but you did that part and I did that part, and you realize that okay, there were like 8 in the editing room, and one started the photography, the other one finished the photography, and so and when we go to and we start to have the stories of the fabrication and the invention of direct cinema, we realize that we're kind of in the same spirit right now, where you had in one room someone that comes from radio, the other one is a journalist, the other one is from cinema, the other one is a sociologist or whatever, and they all are engineers, and engineers were really part of the idea of like, okay, let's take that camera out of the tripod, let's sing that sound to film. And so it's that kind of spirit where it's more about the idea of a collectiveness and try to bring people that don't work together normally, they don't even know each other, and have them reach the same goal and not kill each other. And most of my job is creating the right teams around the right projects. Like 99% of the projects I produce yet are made of people who haven't heard of each other before working on that project. And that's the only way we can go through that. Sometimes painful. You always have the desert in the middle somewhere, like people are like, whoa. But that's where we need to go. Like if we want to do interactive stuff, talk to an interactive designer. If you want to do so.
Give you 3 examples of documentary projects that are very different. And that one is called At Home Chez Soi. There was a very big research in Canada on the problem of mental illness and homelessness, people that live in the streets. And the assumption of the research is that if you would give a house to people that are sick and homeless, that's the way to get them better, not keep them on the street and to go to hospitals and prison, etc. The research was 5 years in 5 cities, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Toronto, Montreal, Moncton. We filmed for 18 months in each of these cities, different characters. Some were the homeless people, some were the caregivers, some were the land tenants that they rented their places, and also people that stayed on the street. So of course, we could have filmed during 18 months and after that have hundreds of hours of material and edit a linear. But we decided no, we should do a interactive work on the web of all the following the characters and getting information, factual information. How much does it cost to spend a night in prison? Well, it's much more costly to have somebody in prison than to rent a room and have them under a roof, or things like that. And it was, so it's a very socially involved project, and it's documented, it's there. And at the end, because we're finishing, we decided, we should do a linear that summarized the experience. So we didn't think about it before, but then at the end we decided we'll do a linear to summarize. So there's no contradiction between having an evolving, interactive work that goes on for a long time, and after that, summarizing it. We had traditional filmmakers working on that. Of course, the designer and the programmer were very, very important in that program. But we had, in each city, a regular documentary filmmaker with editors that, that worked and did little small documentary films. Another project we did was 24 Poses Féministes. It was for the Women's Day with the newspaper. One artist, photographer, gave cameras to 8 artists of other disciplines, dancers, choreographers, humor, stand-up comics, etc. And there was 24 words. And they had to illustrate through their photography what were these words to them. To get a wonderful result. It was very participative between the photographer and them. So it's different works of different amplitude, but prove that how the process between the different kind of artistic disciplines and the interaction, and of course, in many cases, like Insomnia, the material came from insomniacs, people we don't know, that just came in, wrote, spoke, or draw.